Good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, warning signs missed. That's what the Republican head of the House Oversight Committee is charging tonight in the lead up to the U.S. ambassador's death in Libya. He's calling for Congress to return for a special hearing next week. It was a 3-page letter, and in it, Darrell Issa listed 13 security incidents and threats in Libya over the past 6 months, including in June. A pro-Gaddafi Facebook page posted a picture of Ambassador Stevens and mentioned his running habits. The posting directed a threat against Stevens. Issa says Stevens stopped his morning runs for about a week and then resumed them. In June, an IED was successfully placed at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, blowing a hole in the security perimeter gate big enough for 40 people to go through. And in the weeks before the September 11th attacks, unarmed Libyan guards working at the consulate were warned by family members to quit their jobs because of, quote, rumors in the community of an impending attack. Those are just a few of the 13 things that Darrell Issa listed, and he also included this major allegation. According to Issa, multiple U.S. federal government officials have confirmed to the committee that prior to the September 11th attacks, the U.S. mission in Libya made repeated requests for increased security in Benghazi. The mission in Libya, however, was denied these resources by officials in Washington. Now, the State Department has responded to Darrell Issa's letter. Here's spokeswoman Victoria Newland.
We are now working through all of the documents, all of the information that is available to us in this department. We will see where we are on the 10th, but it is our intention to cooperate fully.
All right, Hillary Clinton also responded to Issa with a letter of her own. I have it here. She said she's established an accountability review board which begins work this week to determine, and I want to quote her, I'll read here to you straight from the letter, wants to determine whether our security systems and procedures in Benghazi were adequate, whether they were properly implemented, and any lessons that may be relevant to our work around the world. Darrell Issa joins me now. Good to see you, sir, and appreciate your taking the time tonight.
Well, thank you, and thanks for covering this.
Let me start, if I may, sir, with the serious allegation that you've made. And this one, as I just read the quote from your letter, that the U.S. mission in Libya made repeated requests for increased security in Benghazi, which were denied. Where did you get that information?
We got it from whistleblowers and from confirmation from an interview with the former regional security officer, what's it called, an RSO, who actually has over 66 separate incidents that he recorded. We're not making any allegations. We're taking the facts that were brought to us, putting them in perspective, and asking the question and getting, quite frankly, concerns from the individuals that themselves that were responsible for security. And we're doing it not just for what is a done and sad situation in Libya, but because with the Arab Spring going on around the Arab world, the question is, what are we doing in these other countries? Will we be ready, or could this happen again?
So do you know who denied the security that you're saying was repeatedly denied?
Well, we have a number of documents we've requested. Secretary Clinton has said that she's going to cooperate and provide. Those exchanges, we want to make sure we look at all the documents fully rather than just, if you will, whistleblowers' side of the story. And that's the nature of our committee, is we get a credible and verified allegation of a failure anywhere, and then we follow it up with full confirmation in both sides. And that's what we expect to do between now and the 10th, with the goal on the 10th to make sure this doesn't happen again in some other embassy or with some other foreign service personnel around the world.
So it's interesting because I know you're referencing, an individual that you have information from saying that there were multiple security incidents. But this issue of repeated requests being denied, I think, is really at the heart of what the letter says today. And the reason I wanted to ask you about the sources is because the State Department is telling CNN tonight that security upgrades were actually made to the Benghazi mission, in part in response to some of the security incidents that you reference in your letter. So what are you talking about? It sounds like they got more security.
Well, first of all, we want to hear fully from the State Department. We want to understand how they evaluated the threat, why there were so few people. Remember that we're not investigating, per se, the details the day that the ambassador and his party were killed, but let's understand, clearly he had almost no security on that day. Clearly, this was in a consulate that had been breached earlier with a hole, an explosive hole that was described as a hole that 40 people could run through. So we already kind of know the awful end result. We know there wasn't enough security. That's not our investigation. Our investigation is really about the signs and whether there's a process. And I think Secretary Clinton is saying she wants to do the same thing. And our hope is that between now and October 10th, we go a long way toward doing what we need to do and expecting it'll continue after.
Why do you think it has taken so long for the administration to come out and say this was a terrorist attack? Obviously, they did so formally on Friday, the intelligence community.
Well, you know, I served on the Select Intelligence Committee. It's filled with very conservative people who will often tell you that there may be a threat, and then when something happens, even if it fits all of their claims, they still want to double and triple check. So I give the administration as much as I can the benefit of the doubt for the slowness. Again, though, whistleblowers, multiple confirmed whistleblowers, have told us that they saw and reported what they saw as coming together of al-Qaeda and testing our missions and the British missions. And that's part of what we want to ask is, are these warning signs ones that should have been heeded? And are there similar ones in Beirut or in Oman or in any number of other countries in the Middle East? And
I'm curious because, you know, you sound you're very calm here. Your letter, though, was, you know, like I said, there were some real smoking guns in that letter, the allegations that were in there. And I'm curious, given how calm you are tonight, given that you say you want to work with the Secretary of State, why was it that Elijah Cummings, the ranking member of your committee, tells us that you didn't ask him to sign the letter? You know, you didn't do this in a bipartisan fashion.
Well, first of all, I expect that the hearing will be bipartisan. A number of the Democratic members have already told me they'll be attending. Look, I just got off of Fast and Furious. We're not a committee that we've seen much cooperation, even when there's real wrongdoing that we're running to ground. In this case, there wasn't time to meet our statutory requirements, our rule requirements, and quite frankly, we had a meeting with State in which Mr. Cummings' representatives were there. We asked these questions. This letter is based on specific allegations from whistleblowers confirmed by the regional security officer and then put into a letter. So they're not allegations by us. They're actual statements by individuals who were on the ground both in Tripoli and Benghazi. And we are pursuing this on a bipartisan basis. To be honest, Mr. Cummings was helpful when I called him and asked for this interview with the regional security officer, and he helped make it happen the same day. So we do have a working relationship. We do not often sign on to letters, partially because that can take several days.
And what about a
but
final...
I think the letter is...
I just want to ask you, sorry, a final question, though, about the timing of this. Obviously, it's important to know who knew what when and if the ball was dropped. I don't think there's any American, Democrat or Republican, who disagree with you on that. But why next week? Why ahead of the presidential election, when you yourself just said, look, I understand that sometimes it takes time to get the final answers?
Aaron, we sent a letter on September 20th that wasn't responded to as of yesterday. Subcommittee Chairman Chaffetz sent that letter. So we started this right away. We've continued pursuing it. But let's understand, men and women are serving us overseas around the world. And if what happened in Libya happens again because we waited until after election, 30 or 60 days, then we haven't done our job. The Secretary is working right now before the election. She's put together a panel to start looking at this. We're doing our job, too. And just because it's an election doesn't mean members of Congress shouldn't work, including fact-finding, and that's what we're doing. We're doing it as timely as we can. Okay. Candidly, I would have preferred that the September 20th letter had been responded to sooner.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chairman Issa. We appreciate your time tonight.